Well, good evening. I'm Jeremy, and this is How Songs Come to Be. If you haven't watched my videos before, then basically this is where I talk a bit about a song that I have recently, about in this case, about a week ago, released in some form on YouTube. And I talk about how it was, sort of a bit about how it was written and recorded, and so this song is called Homecoming. It is obviously, hopefully it's obvious, available for listening to on this YouTube channel. The mix is, I wouldn't call it a rough mix, but it's it is not the final polished mix, that will appear on the record, the album that I am this close to releasing. I'm just waiting to get it back from a friend of mine who's mixing it for me. So it's the last song off the record that I've put out from the record. It will probably, I'm anticipating that it will be the last song that is actually on the record, track 9 of 9. But it was the first song that we worked on in terms of the recording of it. When we started out, we did a block of 5 songs, which became 4 because I decided to drop one of them. But 4 songs, and I think Homecoming might have been the very first one that we did, the drums and the bass and the main guitar part for. But it was definitely the first song that I then, brought a mix home and went, right, now it's time to learn, or if I'm being generous, relearn how to be a lead guitarist again. So that was kind of intense, but for me, because it had been a long time since I had written lead guitar parts, played lead guitar parts, and I really wanted to get this right, but I'll come to that later. So this was I wrote the music that became this song, or at least the main riff, as it were, probably sort of about a year before the workshopping of the songs began. So 2 years roughly before the recording of the song began. And what it was written on electric guitar, which clearly this is not. And I just I had my guitar pedal board, set up as I did at that time. It's changed quite a bit since in some ways. And in particular, and let me just reach over here to one I prepared earlier, particularly key to that, sorry, I should have thought of this before, was this pedal here. Not actually this pedal, the other one that's exactly like it, that's sitting over here where you can't see it. But this is a Marshall Regenerator, and I now have 2 of these, but at the time I just had the one. And it's got 6 different settings. There's a couple of chorus, a flanger, a couple of phases, and a sort of a uni-vibe kind of sound. I had it set to one of the chorus settings, and I'd fiddled around with it and found a setting that I quite liked. And that was fine. And then one day I thought, I wonder what some of the other settings, some of the other voicings sound like if I don't touch, the speed and the depth and the rate, the regen. If I just change, the setting that switches between chorus or flanger or whatever, I wonder what that would sound like. And so I did. And that, I don't know that the sound of it sort of particularly blew my mind in the first instance, but I was playing around and I came up with this. So that plays like 4 times, and and there's a lot of reverb and delay, but the phaser just did something that got me quite excited, and I tried playing it, the same with flanger or with chorus, and it just wasn't the same at all. But when I set it to that particular phaser setting, to me it sounded quite magical. Obviously somewhat different to how it sounds on an acoustic guitar. And so I had that for quite a while, and I thought, oh, that's cool, you know, I think there's something there. And so, and over time it started to develop, and so then I decided eventually that, to me, that part sounded like an intro. It didn't sound like a chorus or a verse. It sounded like an intro, and maybe an outro by extension. So then I came up with this next part. You know, and it's not a fast song. It's very sort of dreamscape-ish. And yes, I got that, and then so that repeats a couple of times, and then. And I thought, you know, so I had these three parts. I had an intro that I liked. I had a verse that to me felt like a verse, and then that piece, which I thought that sounds like a nice sort of transitionary part. You know, like a pre-chorus, if you will. And then and yeah, and this is like 4 years ago now that I actually wrote this song. Here's a hilarious thing. I can't actually remember how to play all of this song. There's about 5 or 6 different rhythm guitar parts to this, and I can only remember the first, well, it might even be more than that, it might be 6 or 7 or 8, but I can only remember about half of them because I haven't played it for 3 years, so awkward. But anyway, and then I sort of went from there, and I think I must have bumbled around quite a bit and realized that I wanted to play some variation of whatever this was, and I ended up doing this. Eventually worked out that the next bit needed to sound like this. Nope. As I say, I haven't played this song for 3 years. I knew it was going to be a bit hard work, but I thought, oh, I actually can't. I'm not going to go to the trouble of trying to remember every single part. But that was it. That part there is the chorus, and so, you know, it was quite a while before I had any lyrics, but they eventually came, and it's a funny sort of song. It just goes verse, chorus, extended guitar solo. What's not to like? So when I had got it to the point where I was like, yeah, this is written. I've got a song here, or at least the essence of it. You know, the essential bits. I had a chat with my friend Richard, who plays bass, bass guitar on all of the songs that are on the record. And Richard brings quite an interesting perspective. He comes at things from a very theatrical point of view, you know, sort of storytelling and, you know, elves and fairies and stuff, which is really cool. We often sort of end up on the same page, but we come there to that page from different angles. And so I, you know, ran it past him and said, well, look, this is what I've got. And he said, well, you know, what's it about? And so I said, well, this is what I kind of think it's about. And he looked at me and was like, makes sense to me. You know, and that was cool because I didn't like the idea of, I really didn't like the idea of going, oh, okay, well, I guess we better go verse, chorus, guitar solo, and then have 2 choruses at the end or something, you know, just because that's what you do. So it was cool to, kind of liberating, and I really enjoyed going, no, I'm going to do something that I think is cool, that makes sense to me, regardless. And so, as I say, it goes verse, chorus. Obviously, there's some little interlude bits in there. And then there is, as I say, an extended guitar solo. Now, I came across something somewhere sort of in the last year or so. I wish I could remember who said it, but it was a very good guitarist, particularly a very good lead guitarist. And what he was talking about was that he thought a really, really important part to an awesome guitar solo wasn't just the solo itself, but what's going on underneath it? Of course, because, if the rhythm guitar part, if the musical canvas over which a lead guitarist is painting is boring, that's hard work. But if the rest of the band, the rest of the instruments have laid a foundation, prepared a canvas, if you will, that is in of itself interesting, but hopefully not to the point of distracting from the lead guitar part, then, you're really onto something there. That's going to be really cool. And so the guitar solo that I ended up writing, which I absolutely love, I was so pleased with how it came out. And I'm pretty sure we recorded it in one take as well. Not the first take. There was a lot of screwing up, a lot of mistakes. But eventually we just were like, oh, let's just have another go. And yeah, I was super stoked about that. But it's played over, I think it's 3 different sections that are all quite distinct from each other. The rhythmically different, very, very different progressions. And that really helped because it helped to give, well, to my ears at least, it really helped me to craft an instrumental that, that was a story, a continuation of the story already sort of embodied in the lyrics. Because I wasn't just playing over the same 4 chords or the same riff over and over again. It was this journey, and there were these different sections, and so I, when approaching it as a lead guitarist, was able to respond to those, which I thought was cool, clearly. So when we recorded, as I said earlier, we did the drums and the bass and the main guitar part, and because it's this is the first song I think I've ever actually used a phaser effect on, and it's through the entire song, like it never gets turned off, and so I was quite aware of that. I was like, wow, like how do I add additional textures to this without overcooking it, And so I think the first thing we did was I just doubled it on an acoustic guitar just to add sort of a bit of texture, a different kind of texture, sort of thicken it a little bit, but not in a way that would kind of clog it up, if that makes sense. And then I wrote, a lead guitar part, but not a solo. Just sort of a quiet, light sort of picking part, just to again give it add a different texture to the song, something that was completely different from the main rhythm part. This is taking a while, but this was a really cool song for me to do. One of my favorite parts was that in the interlude between the first chorus and the second verse, this is being played. So I thought, well, I think there should be, like a lead guitar part there, but not something complicated, but just something nice that kind of punctuates it, and so you're not just sort of sitting there waiting for the next verse to start. And so I ended up coming up with this line that I think it's like A, B, A, or something like that. Like the first 2 lines are the same, the third one's a little bit is different. And then maybe the fourth one is the same as the first 2, or more or less. And so I'd written it, and I couldn't decide where it should start. It was something like I could start it here on this string, or up here on this string, and I was like, oh, but which one? I'm not sure. I could mix it up, one then the other, but I wasn't really sure. And so in the end, Matt and I just decided, look, let's just record it 4 times from one position, and then record it 4 times from the other position. Then we can listen to it later, we can fiddle around with it. So we did that, and that was fine. And then the next time I went out to the studio to record something else, Matt was setting it up, getting the song ready, and he hit play, and both guitar lines played at the same time, and they were in harmony with each other, and we just went, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Oh boy, we're gonna do something with this. And so, yeah, so we sort of went through and listened to it a bunch of times. We're like, okay, should it, it's 4 times through. Should it be on the first? Should both of them play the first time? No. Should it be the second time? No. The third time, and the third line is a little bit different from the other two. That was the kicker where we went, yes, that's awesome. And then drop it out, so it was just the one guitar for the last one. And it was this wonderful sort of serendipitous thing. What I particularly loved about it was that it reminded me, and to be clear, I'm not saying it sounds like it. I'm not saying it's as amazing as. I'm just saying it reminded me of one of my favorite guitar lines from a song by Alice in Chains, Rotten. Pretty sure it's Rotten Apple. Yeah, to get that right. And that I discovered, I don't know, in my late teens or something, and just the guitar sound Jerry Cantrell's playing, it just blown my mind. I thought that is the most amazing guitar part ever. Just the tone and his use of a wah pedal and everything. And this, as I say, what we achieved with this song, it just reminded me of that. Which is to say, it made me think of it. It was, as I say, I'm not saying it sounds the same. But it was just kind of, it was a really cool moment that I really enjoyed. Yeah. That's kind of it. I try to keep these a bit shorter, but this is a long song, and there's kind of a lot to talk about. But yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to hearing the final mixed version, because I haven't heard it yet. There are 2 songs left to go that my friend Aaron is mixing, and yeah, he hasn't done them yet, so I haven't heard them, obviously. But this is one of them, and he's made everything else sound amazing. It went from sounding great to sounding amazing. And so I'm particularly looking forward to seeing what he does with Homecoming. But in the meantime, please go have a listen to the mix that Matt and I did. I enjoy it. I think it sounds cool, but then I would. So, yeah, that is how a song has come to be. Good night.